Thank you, Chair Schakowsky and Ranking Member Bilirakis for holding this hearing. And thank you to the witnesses for appearing before us today. This pandemic has impacted us all. It has been particularly troublesome for our youth, as the witnesses talked about today. Students learning remotely are missing out on higher quality instruction from the in-person attention during formative years of their development. I'm concerned that those lost opportunities will lead to damaging learning gaps, setting back an entire generation. Instead of having exposure to social connections with their peers at school, students in virtual settings across the country are often isolated, spending more time on the internet and away from their friends. Comparatively, in my state, Indiana, Hoosiers underwent local community-led efforts last summer to keep our kids in school. Together with parents, administrators, and local health officials, schools in my district developed comprehensive strategies to ensure students and teachers could safely return to the classroom, which they did. And that's exactly what they did. Every one of the counties in my district have schools that have returned to the classroom with notable success. Having students in person provides structure and stability that is so important for the mental and emotional well-being of children. Beyond the attention received in the classroom, clubs, sports, teams, and other student organizations provide an invaluable collective learning environment that cannot be replicated from a Zoom connection, like leadership skills and social skills. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet with bright young students at St. Nicholas Catholic School and Batesville High School, a public school. Both schools are prime examples of how local stakeholders are best positioned to develop school safety strategies that fit the unique educational needs of their community. From my discussions with these students, their teachers, and administrators, one thing remained clear. Students feel more purpose when they are in school and involved in person. I share the concerns of my colleagues that the increased online presence of children can be detrimental to their health and safety. Shifting children away from in-person learning and towards a digital life has surely sentenced them to more time for predators to prowl, which is another argument for in-school learning. Dr. DeAngelis, I'm afraid of a scenario of dueling outcomes for students that participate virtually versus students that participate in person. In your testimony, you mentioned substantial achievement gaps between these two groups, specifically leading to increased dropout rates and impacts on their future earnings. Can you please expand on what this will mean for our future generation of, in particular, community leaders that are losing this sports and social interaction?
Yeah, I'd first like to point out, look, this is leading to inequity. So this is hitting the least advantaged in the community the hardest, particularly because the most advantaged have access to in-person alternatives or good versions of remote virtual learning at home, or even have more ability to cover the costs associated with home-based education. But to your point, McKinsey and Company, a nationwide analysis in 2020 on two separate occasions, found that they estimated that achievement gaps would increase, and achievement gaps are already a horrible thing in the United States that we need to remedy. But the gaps by race, they estimate to increase by 15 to 20%, and they estimate dropout rates to increase by 2 to 9 percentage points, translating to about 232,000 to 1.1 million additional 9th to 11th graders dropping out of high school, which could translate to about $60,000 to $80,000 in a reduction of lifetime earnings, which is a huge problem, obviously. And there's a lot of evidence. This is just one source from McKinsey and Company finding these exacerbated inequities from keeping the schools closed. So the best option is to give families options, to allow them to choose the in-person or remote or hybrid learning setting of their choice, or even better, allocate the money to the families so that more families can access other in-person alternatives.
Which in Indiana, we have school choice. Thank you, Madam Chair, I yield back.